Hey, what's up, YouTube? We're back with another video. Today, we're going to be discussing bot primary weapons and which ones we recommend and which ones we don't necessarily recommend on the bot front, because we are continuing our series of following the MO. We're currently under a bot offensive, and people are asking, hey, what primaries are good? Which ones are bad? How's the Coyote? We'll be answering that today. Let's get into it. So starting off, we have the basic Liberator, light pen, decent damage, decent fire rate, kind of like the all-rounder. Not necessarily bad versus the bot front. You're going to lose some amount of utility on the bot front just because you don't have medium pen, you won't be able to take out a tank, for instance, from the back with your primary weapon. You can obviously always bring something else to do that, so it's not a huge deal, but it does matter to some extent when we're talking about this tier list. It does require a decent amount of accuracy on the bot front, either choosing a leg to shoot, because if you don't know, the legs are technically weak points. You can just fire at one leg, breaking it, they instantly die when they lose one leg. Or you can go for the front faceplate, but depending on the situation, one might be easier than the other for the player. Overall, Liberator, solid. It's going to be our mid-tier weapon in most respects. Obviously, as far as like recommended attachments, flash hider, vertical foregrip, and drum mag, and your choice of scope are your go-tos there. It will feel quite a bit better when you have the larger magazine, I will say. Starting off the tier list with a solid B placement. I don't think it's like bad and I don't think it's great. It's just somewhere in the middle. The Liberator Penetrator is our next one. Another weapon that shined a lot when we got the new attachments. We got the drum mag, medium pen, 60 damage. So it's solid, good durable damage, very easy to use. Overall, just a great weapon for your bot missions, especially in the early game, because you unlock it very early on in the free war bond. So for new players out there, I can easily recommend this as like your first like bot weapon that you like focus on. And once you get like the drum mag and attachments like that, it'll feel very good. You don't have to be as precise as you would be with the normal Liberator. I would still recommend, obviously, go for your weak points, but you can make that choice for yourself if you feel like you maybe don't want to be as accurate that day and you want to hit maybe some more body shots. The Liberator Penetrator will help you with that. So easy A tier. I would say it's definitely closer to the A plus tier rather than like A minus. We don't have the A minus and A plus today. I'm just trying to go back to a more simplistic format. Next, we have the Liberator Concussive. We have middling damage, pretty low, honestly, especially for the fire rate, but we get a lot of stagger. Now, because it's light pen, you're gonna have to shoot at weak points still to get the stagger, but it's not bad. Drum mag by default with the vertical foregrip, your choice of scope, it works fairly well, honestly. I would not like scoff at someone using this necessarily as like a team support. It is very useful when you shoot at something and it can't shoot back at you. That's another thing that the weapons that we've currently talked about. If you're shooting at something, it's going to shoot back and it will flinch you, and you're not necessarily flinching them. But with the Concussive Liberator, you'll be flinching them and they just won't be able to do anything. It's not bad. I think it's like a C tier, but it's honestly got a decent amount of team support where for the right players, I could see some players maybe favoring it more towards B minus. Like if we had the B finest tier, I'd probably just stick it in there to be safe, but it's definitely on the lower end of the scale on bots just because you do still need to kind of hit weak points in order to get the stagger, which is a bit awkward. Next, we have the Killzone Assault Rifle StA-52. Definitely a decent assault rifle, but it's nothing really special compared to that of the normal Liberator variety. It's essentially like a carbon copy in many respects to the Liberator. You get a little bit of fire rate increase and you get technically a magazine increase, but it's still a little bit less than the drum mag of 60 rounds. I don't necessarily recommend the StA-52 if you have it. Many probably won't. It will be coming back in a future Legendary War Bond for those that are wondering. They've already confirmed that. I would personally just go with the normal Liberator just because you get a better sight picture. Because you can see you only get red dot on it, or like, sorry, iron sights on it. Shooting at anything over 50 meters is pretty rough. So I honestly think it's like a C tier pick. I like not a D tier because it's actually like fairly useful, but not particularly amazing. Okay, next we go for the Pacifier, 40 round magazine, 50 damage. So it's definitely our lowest damage AR, but what it does is it has medium pen, which actually will give it more damage than many light pen weapons when shooting light armor. Remember, there is a 35% difference in damage when you are overmatching the armor requirement or armor pen requirement, and you also get stun. So not a bad bot weapon, but also not a great bot weapon. I think it's like a middle B just because it has a decent amount of stagger. It is medium pen, so you can kind of be like inaccurate with it and get a good amount of utility out of it. And just in general, just being able to, like I said with Deliver and Concussive, you can shoot at someone and they can't shoot back. That's incredibly useful, like so useful. I think it's underrated to some extent. I do think that the stun should probably kick in a little bit sooner and a little bit longer, and honestly maybe even a little bit more damage. We'll see if they do some balancing around assault rifles now that the Coyote exists. We'll get into the Coyote a little bit later, but yeah, it's kind of overshadowing a lot of things. As far as like attachments, very similar. I do vertical foregrip with a muzzle brake, but depending on how you like your bullet spread, you know, I think there's a lot of different options you can use on this weapon. Going into our next one, we have the Liberator Carbine. Many people coin it the little stalwart or the mini stalwart, and I think that's pretty fair. Super high fire rate AR, light pen, but with all the upgrades with the drum mag and the muzzle brake and the vertical foregrip, the recoil is really non-existent anymore. It's not a huge problem. It doesn't get as much usage on the bot front just because I feel like you can't utilize the fire rate as much just because you're typically trying to go for a little bit more weak points. But like I said, you know, with light pen weapons, you can still go for like leg shots on the occasional Devastator. And that's not a bad choice at all to kill them. It is probably straight up an upgrade over the normal Liberator for many. The fire rate might hurt some people's appeal to it because you do in fact go through your ammo faster than with the base Liberator. So you have this mentality of overshooting an enemy rather than like being more ammo efficient. But for many, as long as you can like control the recoil and control your fire rate, like you're not going too crazy, I think it is basically a straight up upgrade. I won't put an A tier just because I don't think it's that good of a bot killing weapon, but it's decent. Next, we have my favorite light pen assault rifle. We have the Tenderizer, kind of Halo BR like, vertical foregrip, decent sight, and then unfortunately no magazine on this. I go for the muzzle brake, but depending on how you like your shot pattern, there's a bunch of different ones. I really hope that this gets a magazine in the future to at least 45, 50 at least. But that being said, I do really like this as a primary weapon. It is extremely stable, especially when you're like going for like small bursts. You can put it in burst fire as well, by the way, similar to the Halo BR. And then you could just start like burst firing the heads of Devastators, one bursting them. It's very satisfying. I do really like the Tenderizer and I would recommend it. It's not as high as the Liberator Penetrator as far as usability, but it's still in the A tier. I do like it quite a bit. Next, we have the Adjudicator. In many respects, like a solid medium pen AR. I don't think people overall will enjoy it as much as the Liberator Penetrator. I think the Liberator Penetrator has just an easier time existing for people, just like less recoil, larger magazine on the Liberator Penetrator. I think it's just an easier weapon to use. The extra damage is very useful, especially when shooting like higher HP targets, because you just get a little bit more damage per second. But overall, I think the Liberator Penetrator ends up being the better of the two. That being said, I think the Adjudicator is a solid pick. It is essentially middle A. I don't think it's S tier at all, and Liberator Penetrator will probably be many people's choice over it. Getting into our marksman rifles, we have the Amendment, my favorite light pen marksman rifle. I think a lot of people sleep on this weapon, even on bots. Yes, it's light pen, but this thing shreds through bots. The one tap potential on eyes is very satisfying, and the ability to actually mag dump a leg of a Devastator really fast is awesome. Because what a lot of people don't realize is that the Amendment shares a lot of characteristics with the Diligence Counter Sniper. 200 flat damage, and actually a ton of durable damage. And that durable damage is literally the exact same for both weapons. Something I like to say for the Amendment is it's kind of Diligence Counter Sniper adjacent weapon. If you don't need the medium pen, the Amendment is actually the better weapon. Its fire rate doesn't seem very impressive, but you can actually spam fire it in incredibly fast. And the recoil is very small. It says that it's 29, but it doesn't feel that way at all. Fast reload, you get the bayonet for those tier 1 enemies, I guess. But dude, I really like the Amendment. I'm going to put it actually above the Polar Patriot, just because the Tenderizer, you obviously need to take more than one shot to kill a Devastator's eye. But with the Amendment, for a skilled shot placement, you can one tap them. And then for the leg of a Devastator, you are just obliterating them. Just aim leg level and just go leg to leg, multi-shotting them. It's like 3 shots to the leg. It's great. If you've never tried it, people are sleeping on it. Next, going into the Constitution, honestly, not that bad on bots if you have good aim. But if you're not really heading your headies, it's pretty hard to use. You get a lot of ammunition at least with it, so that's at least one positive, and you do get the bayonet, which can be useful at times, but it's just like hard to use. I will put it middle B just because it is at least medium pen, but I don't think it's something that I would recommend many people use unless you have very good aim, because it can be incredibly punishing. Next, we have the Deadeye, super solid bot weapon. Really love this thing. The magazine can feel a little bit limiting at times, and you might not love the fact that it has a pretty small magazine, but just remember, after you take a shot, try to reload it and just continuously have that idea in your head of reloading it. If you do that, I find that the Deadeye magazine becomes largely not that big of an issue. The damage is fantastic, going for leg shots, double tapping them, or one shot to the eye. If you're not one tapping consistently, maybe just go for leg shots, honestly. Also, it has a good deal of stagger on it. It's a really satisfying weapon to use. Not quite S tier, in my opinion, mostly down to like fire rate and magazine size, but incredibly fun to use, and I really enjoy it. I highly recommend giving it a try if you have never. It's really fun on bots. Next, going to our regular Diligence. This is a light pen, fairly high damage DMR. If someone is a marksman enjoyer, but you don't want the huge ergonomic hit of the Diligence counter sniper, I think the regular Diligence is not that bad. It's definitely an accuracy weapon where like hitting your weak points will matter, and you don't have a ton of utility because it is light pen in that regard, but I still think it's decent. It's definitely like, I would put it above the regular Diligence just because it is a longer range weapon, and on, I think, bot missions, you tend to be shooting at enemies at around 50 meters or so, give or take. Depends obviously on playstyle and such, but you know, you're tending to have that longer range engagement, and I think the Diligence does a better job of just one tapping, which is really nice. Next, we are going to talk about the Diligence counter sniper. It's the bigger brother to the regular Diligence, but you get medium pen, which is really nice, but you get really bad ergonomic stats. With my current build, I go for no underbarrel with the 1.5 tube, and I go flash hider just to keep my ergonomics above 30. I find that 30 is kind of that cutoff. 30, 35 is where if it's any worse than that, I feel like I need to use peak physique, or I feel like I need to use or I just need to be incredibly patient when I'm using it, and I don't always want to do that. And yeah, so I'll typically try to build my weapon a little bit higher than 30 ergonomics. If you're on controller, I definitely hear the feedback of like, okay, I can use lower ergonomic weapons and they don't feel as bad because I'm on controller. But on PC, on mouse keyboard, you want a little bit snappier. So Diligence counter sniper, absolutely right up there with the Deadeye. I think it's like interchangeable as far as like how it performs. Like there's many times that I prefer to use the Deadeye just because the ergonomic hit on that weapon is like non-existent. It's like 1-to-1, and honestly, I'd probably use the Deadeye in most situations unless I need to mag dump something. If I need to mag dump something and just do like sheer damage per second, that's when I'm like using the Diligence counter sniper. But if I'm like being more precise with my shots and taking my time, the Deadeye ends up actually being better. And also you get the stagger of the Deadeye compared to the Diligence counter sniper. So you kind of have to pick and choose what you prefer more. Okay, next, going into our SMGs, we have the Knight. This one has exploded in popularity ever since it got attachments. Obviously, you put the bigger magazine with a vertical foregrip and a muzzle brake, and this thing becomes an absolute laser. This is the alternative to the Liberator Carbine as far as the mini stalwart. Very good options here. Highly recommend the Knight. I think, you know, it is a borderline pay to win weapon, but it is quite fun even on bots. You can go for leg shots, obviously, or those headshots, but you're going to be going through quite a bit of ammo unless you're putting it maybe in burst fire. Burst fire is an option selectable on the Knight. It's a fun weapon, but I'm probably just going to put it right next to Liberator Carbine because it's kind of just an alternative. You get a little bit less damage, but you get more fire rate. It's an SMG one-handed, which some people may enjoy, but maybe someone would prefer the range advantage of the Viper Commando. Liberator, I don't know. It goes both ways. Now, at least it's not as bad as the StA-11. The StA-11 shares a lot in common with the Knight and the M7S SMG, but it just doesn't feel good, man. The recoil on it feels terrible. It just, in general, I just don't like the StA-11. Doesn't have good sights, no attachments. It just genuinely doesn't feel good on bots because you need to kind of feel somewhat precise when you use a weapon on bots, and you just don't feel that with the StA-11. So it's right down there in D tier. Cannot recommend. Okay, next going to our Reprimand SMG. It's in the SMG category, but it's not actually an SMG. It might say that, but it's not. It's literally an assault rifle. It's not one-handed. It actually plays a lot like the Adjudicator, but with slightly different stats, an even slower fire rate, but you get more damage per bullet, right? Also, the recoil can be easily managed with a vertical foregrip, and then the compensator becomes pretty good laser beam. The issue, though, is that the range on it is pretty lackluster. The round slows a lot after leaving the barrel, and just in general, the muzzle velocity of the round is pretty slow. So I do think it is like easily a contender in the A tier, but some people would prefer it over the Liberators, like the basic Liberator Penetrator, and some people would prefer it over the Adjudicator, but it can easily be reversed when talking about those other weapons. Like it's the Reprimand is a bit of an odd one because it's, you know, if you prefer range, you may prefer the other ones, but it does fry up close. It does a really good job of deleting Devastators in extreme close range. So, you know, it's personal preference, but I'm going to put them all next to each other. Okay, we have the Defender now. The Defender is pretty lackluster in my opinion. It's decent AR damage, but on an incredibly slow fire rate compared to a lot of the ARs. You can get a massive 75 round magazine, which is pretty cool, but I personally think you're better off just like bringing the Knight, or like if we're talking one-handed weapons, like you need a one-handed weapon, just use the crossbow. We're gonna get into the crossbow a little bit later, but you'll know why. I think the Defender is okay for just like ballistic, you know, shield or directional shield gameplay, and or you just need one-handed gameplay and you just want it to be super accurate and like a laser, and you're very good at hitting your precise shots, and it's like pretty good for that. But I don't think I'm gonna favor it like much more than like just a normal Knight, in my opinion. I think the normal Knight is more or less better in many respects, and it just, actually I'm gonna put it right next to the Liberator because it's kind of just the Liberator of the SMGs, but at the same time, you're kind of just better off using the Liberator. I could see a one-handed weapon being a little bit more useful on the bot front, which is why I'm going to keep it in B tier. But as you've seen in my other video, I don't really favor one-handed weapons on other factions as much, just because it gets a lot less use. Okay, next we go to the Pummeler. You lose some damage. It also has a 75 round magazine. I just don't have it equipped here. And then it's like quite accurate, but you get a further reduction in fire rate as well. So definitely less damage per second, but it is the alternative because it's like more like the Liberator concussive. I don't think it's as good as the Defender. I think the Defender is just kind of better for bots overall, just because the higher damage per second just gives you that fallback if there's a berserker in front of you or something like that. The stun is useful, but I haven't been a huge fan of these status effects ever since they've changed them more recently. We'll see in the future if they make more changes to them. Hopefully they do, but not a bad choice, but I don't think also a great one either. Okay, going into our shotguns, the Punisher. Honestly, a slept-on weapon, even by like the most like avid players. You put a full choke on this thing, and it actually does a very good job of staggering and being an easy-to-use bot-killing weapon. Like, I don't know if it necessarily deserves to be an A tier still. I used to put it in A tier, but it feels very nice to use on the bot front. Unironically, shoot at the eye, and you will kill them within a couple pumps usually, because the shotgun spread is like quite narrow, especially with the full choke, and the damage per pellet is like quite nice. So you can actually do like a Devastator like sniping with it, and you're usually staggering them at the exact same time so they can't fire back at you. I really do like it. It's like definitely for the lower difficulties. I'm doing this tier list around, you know, tier 10 co-op as I normally do, so keep that in mind. So that's why I'm not putting it higher, but like if you're first starting off in the game and you're playing against bots, it's not a bad option at all versus lower tier bots. Feels all right. Okay, next we have the Slugger, which has had a pretty like roller coaster type adventure through Helldivers, but I think it's on definitely like one of the higher upswings of its life at the moment. You know, good medium pen, lots of stagger, not the greatest range, but good ergonomics. Just it feels good on bots. It does. Going for leg shots or headshots, I do like it. You know, it would be nice if we got some more attachments. Hell, even just like a silly one of like being able to put like a massive like scope on it of like a 4x or something like that would be really fun to like battlefield snipe with the Slugger. But good weapon, solid. I'd recommend it for bots. It can bully enemies, and just don't use it at extreme range. Like I'd say more than, you know, 50, 60 meters, I'd probably stop shooting at an enemy, or just you're shooting at them not to kill, but to like stagger at that point. Okay, next we go to the Halt. The Halt shotgun. It is our flechette medium pen shotgun with an EMS round alternative, which is pretty cool. Pretty cool. If you're good at swapping between the two fire modes, I think the Halt is like an absolutely solid pick on the bot front. It's just the problem is that swapping between the two can be pretty annoying, especially if you don't do the Halt tech where like you bind the swap, you know, fire mode button to also on the same button and you move it one to the right. It's a whole thing. You can look it up if you want. It's not something that I really recommend because it can actually mess with other weapons, because when you do the Halt tech, it affects all your weapons and how it swaps. But hey, if you're a huge fan of it, go for it. Yeah, it's decent. I just think you need to leverage the EMS rounds for it to be this high. If you're not really leveraging the EMS rounds, I honestly at times would just prefer to use the regular Punisher. Okay, next for a little bit of a hot take, pun intended, the Cookout is actually doing quite good work on the bot front. Obviously, its downside is light pen, but it's actually a step above that of the regular Punisher because it lights enemies on fire. And if you didn't know, they've more recently buffed fire. So fire damage scales with how big the enemy is. And this has affected the bot front actually big time because it only takes 2 instances of fire to kill a Devastator. So what that means is if you light an enemy on fire, wait from the tick, fire goes out, and then fire it again, you can literally just walk away. The Devastator will burn. And you might be like, well, is it easy to light them on fire? Yeah, it actually is, because you can just shoot at their legs. Their legs are light armor. So you can shoot them nearly almost all the time at their legs or at a Devastator swarm and light many of them on fire, and you can deal with them that way. You'll probably want to bring medium pen somewhere else in your loadout because it can be pretty annoying to like use the Cookout to kill like a Rocket Strider or something like that. But it is very good versus Devastator swarms, which are arguably very deadly in large numbers. So yeah, highly recommend the Cookout. It's a fun one. All right, next, going to the regular breaker shotgun. It has the unfortunate side of just being like the DPS king of like, if you can get all the shell or all the pellets to land. I don't think it is as like appealing as like the Punisher, but you know, with some decent attachments like the full choke, I think you can do some decent work with it against regular Devastators, even against the legs, because you can just kind of mag dump them. But I would probably prefer like other shotguns over it. Not a terrible option, but not a great one. The regular Spray&Pray next is kind of the alternative to the breaker. Personally, I like the breaker way more just because of the damage per second. If I need something to die with a shotgun, I take the breaker because it just deals that damage so much faster. You get a 10% fire rate bump, as you can see here, when you take the Spray&Pray, but that's not enough to change how I feel about it because you get just so much more damage per shot. Yes, the total damage of like its reserves is better for the Spray&Pray, but typically that doesn't really matter for these kind of shotguns. If you end up dying because the Berserker is in your face and you didn't kill him fast enough, that's on the Spray&Pray. If you want to use one, I highly recommend the breaker. Obviously, I'm going to bring like my full choke and maybe a drum mag or short mag, but yeah, it's a lot of personal preference in that regard. All right, next, the Incendiary breaker. I'm putting the Incendiary breaker a little bit lower in general. It's probably like somewhere teetering between the two. I'm going to put it like B+, and the main reason for that is its ammo reserves are definitely suffering, and it doesn't have the stagger effect that you would see on the regular Cookout. It can still light enemies on fire and like absolutely melt them within two uses, but I don't love it as much as the Cookout just because it is really nice to be able to stagger a Devastator shooting at you and then he stops. I'm probably being a bit harsh to it. It's probably closer to A- than it is B+, but I'm gonna put it in B+ for now. All right, next, going to our two S tiers. I don't think it's surprising at all that we put both the Crossbow and the Eruptor in S tier. Out of the two of them, I think the Eruptor is the better of the two, just because of its shrapnel and it just does a lot more damage per shot, and the utility of it doing heavy armor pen that allows you to two-shot Hulk in the eye. So you end up actually being able to use this as a support weapon. The Eruptor is so good because it ends up playing a lot more like a support weapon than a primary weapon when you use it correctly. You can very regularly one-tap Devastators with this. You can very regularly just use it for, you know, Fabricator sniping, Hulk killing, like, it's just so good. Shoot at the bottom of a dropship that comes in. A lot of enemies will die. It's really, really good. It's hard for me not to want to just put it all the way up in S tier. It probably deserves its own category of like S+ tier, but you know, hopefully you guys understand. The Crossbow is an alternative to the Eruptor. It's one-handed, so some people may really like that for their one-handed oriented builds, but it's not quite as good as the Eruptor, requiring 2 shots to kill Devastators. It's got a little bit more reliable explosive damage because a lot of the Eruptor's damage tends to be shrapnel, which is hit and miss as far as AoE, but as far as single target shotgunning an enemy, very strong. Very, 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 very strong. So yeah, the Eruptor is disgusting. All right, next, going to the Punisher Plasma. I'm still quite disappointed in the Punisher Plasma. I know a lot of people still like using it, but I just find the damage to be very lackluster. I don't know. It's just not a weapon that I tend to use. I find that it does not enough damage, so it just kind of pushes enemies around. It kind of feels like the Liberator concussive version of like this shotgun variant or plasma variant. Like it's just, it kind of just bullies enemies, which is like okay, but I don't think it's actually that good. Also, it suffers from a lot of range problems just because of the arc of the shot, and it actually has a finite range because plasma shots eventually just kind of go, after a certain amount of airtime, they just go straight down. So a bit hard to use. I don't think it's that bad, but I like D tier, but I don't think it's that good. I would genuinely use like all the B tier weapons over it. It's kind of meh. I do think if it got like at least 100 more damage, I would like start putting it like B+, and then maybe even a little bit more damage, then it would be A. It's getting closer. It just needs some love. It's been one of those weapons that just hasn't been touched in a very long time, so it's been powered. Okay, next, going to the Accelerator rifle. This is the second Killzone weapon. They, a couple months back, improved the damage fall off of it, so it no longer loses like the majority of its damage before it even hits the target. It was a sniper rifle, but it wasn't much of a sniper rifle because of that. Because of that change, it's like incredibly solid in my opinion. The only reason I wouldn't put it any higher is mostly down to the fact that it requires a decent amount of accuracy and the ammo reserves are like quite low on it. Like quite low, but I do think it's decent. It's actually like a standout weapon that I would genuinely like using at times. I will probably just feel like the ammo is like a little too low, and it will constantly kind of overkill like a Devastator and stuff like that. So it does make me wish that I could like, you know, semi-auto it, like just one shot instead of the burst, but it is what it is. Okay, next, going to the Blitzer. Definitely kind of a hard one for me to place on bots because I do think that it's like pretty good for the CC factor, and it does have medium pen, so it's like fairly good, but range is such a factor on bot missions that it's hard for me to really favor the Blitzer. I think it's like okay for bot missions, but like I think I'm gonna put it right next to the Plasma Punisher. Like if you have a very close range playstyle on bots, I could see someone maybe really enjoying this, but it's not something that I would really recommend all too much. It's fairly good because it obviously has crazy stagger, unlimited ammo, medium pen, but it can be unreliable and it has short range. So, okay. The Scythe is your mini laser cannon. It is a fairly fun weapon to use. As of testing it not too long ago, the sights are still bugged. So if you increase the sight picture, like the zoom on your sight, unfortunately, the weapon moves farther away from you. You do get the zoom, but it's like very disorienting. I don't recommend it for that reason. I'm still hoping that they fix that like ADS bug. You guys can let me know down below if they've actually fixed it, but the last time I used it a couple weeks ago, or actually like 2 weeks ago, it was not fixed, so I can't really recommend it. Like it's decent if you just like hip fire it all the time because it is a laser, literally a laser, but you know, it's like B-, C. I'm going to put a B- just because like, say you're very good at hip firing or like not using the ADS with it and you don't really need that crazy range. It can be quite good, but you need a very accurate hand. It's just so awkward if you put like a 4x on it and you like increase the zoom. I really don't like that. So very meh. Okay, next we go to the Sickle. The Sickle is definitely being power crept. 55 damage, energy-based AR. Decent bloom. There's definitely a little bit of bloom on it, but good fire rate, and it is an unlimited ammo weapon. I do like using this weapon versus bots and just like aiming in their general eye direction and just like spraying and praying in a way. Because of the bloom, it's like not the most accurate weapon in the world, but it is fun to use. I'm gonna put a B+. As far as light pen weapons go, I do like it, but I would prefer to use like Tenderizer and things like that where they're just a little more accurate. But the unlimited ammo nature is nice. It can be very nice, but because it's an energy-based weapon and it can overheat, I find that the like berserker swarms and stuff like that can be a bit too much for this weapon to handle. And I would actually prefer to have magazines at that point when I just need to do a lot of damage in a small amount of time. Okay, the D Sickle, the ever hard weapon to place. And the reason for that is because if you invest in it, this thing's sick. It's awesome. If you don't invest in it, it's below mid. It does damage and it ramps up in damage, fire rate, and penetration as it gets hotter. If you wear fire resistance armor, even like the most basic form on light armor, and you put on the vitality booster, so, you know, just the regular, it could be any fire resistance armor, it doesn't really matter, but light armor if you want, or salamander or whatever, and then you put on the vitality booster, this weapon does zero, like D Sickle does 0 damage to you until you overheat it, right? So you get a ton of fire time in the medium pen and even a little bit of fire time in the heavy pen category before it does any damage to you. And if you prone with it at the same time and you bring like supply backpack for stims, the D Sickle can kind of turn into like this pen 4 like support weapon in a way. It's actually pretty sick. But that being said, you have to do quite a bit of investment to get to that point. And some people may not want to do that. So it's kind of a hard one for me to place. I think it's like easily an A+, you know, maybe even S tier weapon if you invest in it, but it's unfair to do that because the rest of the weapons I'm not really doing that for, right? I'm assuming you're just not using the right armor for it, or, you know, you're not like building around the weapon necessarily. You're just, this is a raw, how does the weapon perform versus other weapons, right? So I'm going to put it like in B tier, like I'm going to cut it down the middle because I think it's kind of like a C tier pick if you don't invest in it. But I'm going to assume that you're at least on a team with vitality booster and, you know, you're maybe looking to like invest in it, hopefully. But yeah, let's put a big asterisk next to that one. It's easily like an A+, S- weapon if you invest in it though. So highly recommend that. Okay, for an absolute fan favorite next, we have the Scorcher. The Scorcher is a fantastic primary for the bot front, but it comes with one big flaw, which is its ammo capacity. The ammo capacity on this weapon, quite shite. You're going to want to bring like a supply backpack or just be very ammo conscious, like tap firing, not full auto firing and wasting ammo, making sure to pick up yellow bricks of ammo, looking for the resupply pod, things of that nature. But if you do that, the Scorcher is incredibly good. Not S tier, but incredibly high on the tier list because it's just so user friendly. But the ammo supply really does hurt it. So I think it's like a middle A. I've always hoped that it would get one more magazine, but maybe that would be too good for it. But I think one more magazine would go so far. If you are using it, the siege ready armor does work very nicely. Okay, next for the Purifier. In my personal preference, I think this gun is actually insane on the bot front. It's not as good as, let's say, the Crossbow or Eruptor, but I'm going to put it in S tier, even though it's not. Like, technically, the Crossbow and the Eruptor deserve to be in like some S+ tier, but the Purifier is insanely good at killing Devastator swarms because it does so much damage. And if you're okay with charged weapons, it's disgusting. It's really good at just eliminating a ton of bots with not that much accuracy. And if an enemy gets too close to you, you just tap fire really fast. It's definitely the faction that I think this weapon kind of shines the brightest on. It does shine pretty brightly on Illuminate, and we'll talk about it when we get there, but it's a really good weapon. I highly recommend it. A lot of people don't really use it, and I think that's mostly because of charged weapons, and I get it, but if you're okay with charged weapons, it's very good. It just doesn't have the support that you would see with like Crossbow or Eruptor, let's say. Next, we have the variable, 85 damage, light pen. you get a AR-like fire mode, you get a shotgun-like fire mode, and you get the total fire mode, which fires all rounds at the same time. I think this weapon is super fun to use with the warp pack and like teleport behind hulks through them and like turn around really fast and total shot their like radiator. Super fun. It's not the best weapon for bots, but it's very fun. I do like using the shotgun spread on Devastator eyes. I like using the AR for just like regular mobbing, and the total shot is really nice for just sniping radiators on hulks. Very, very, very fun. And I think the utility is quite high on the bot front. I'm going to put it somewhere around the Tenderizer as far as that. I think it has a decent amount of utility. It's just your mileage may vary if you're doing the right tactics to make it work. The ergonomics can be a bit painful on it. I tend to use the 1.5x just because it doesn't hurt ergonomics very much on it. So you claw back a little bit more, but the ergonomics can be pretty damn rough on it, and it doesn't feel the best because of that, right? But I think it's a very good weapon regardless. So I would recommend. Okay, next we have the Torcher. The Torcher is hard to use on the bot front just because of range, but if you can get close enough, it does have a lot of armor penetration. It's an armor pen 4 weapon. So it does a ton of damage to like hulks and, you know, the rears of tanks. And if you can get underneath a factory strider, it can absolutely destroy them. The problem is getting close enough and not dying, but it is fun. It's a very, very fun weapon to use. It's just hard. I'm going to put it somewhere in like a B tier, like middle B. I think the potential for it is quite high if you can make it work. It's just unlikely that you're always going to be able to make it work. You know, if you're purely looking at what it's great at, it would be like A tier, but I think there's a ton of situations where it's going to feel quite useless because of range. So I'm going to drop it down to B for that reason. Okay, the Dominator. Bit of a tough one to place because I do think that there's an argument for it to be A tier, and I think there's an argument to be in S tier. But personally, with the attachments that they've given us, I really like going like full ergonomic on it, and just like using it as like a closer range like Slugger, but with like a full auto fire rate. Or it's not like full auto, but you know what I mean. It's a faster fire rate. I really love this thing. It's great. If you can't accurately hit the eyes, remember, double leg shot. It's more or less a alternative to the Deadeye because you gain a bigger magazine with a faster fire rate, but you give up on like range more or less because the round is a little bit hard to use at range because of the slow travel time. I really like the Dominator. It's a tough one. It really is because I really like it, but I don't think it quite deserves to be an S tier. It's a bit hard sometimes to use, and I don't think it's as good as the Purifier personally. I'm going to put it right next to the Deadeye because I think it's like essentially just like the Deadeye. I might be being a bit hard on the Dominator, but you know, I really like it. It's fantastic. It's probably like my top A tier easily. I don't know if I would put it in S tier at the moment. All right. Going to the Halo AR. The Halo AR was most recently added with the legendary Warbond. The weapon is the Adjudicator, and the Liberator Penetrator had a baby, essentially. It has a very similar archetype of like damage and magazine of the Adjudicator, but it has a lower recoil, so it kind of ends up feeling the Liberator Penetrator, but it doesn't have a sight. So you're more or less hip firing it all the time, which is not bad, but you're definitely going to feel that when you're trying to shoot at like a Devastator at like 75 meters. And for that reason, I think it's like still an A tier weapon, but like an A minus. I don't think it deserves to be in B plus. I do think it's better than that, but it's definitely not something I'm like favoring over like a lot of like even my light pen weapons that have more range on them because they have a better sight. Okay, next we go to the SMG. SMGs in this sandbox don't feel amazing, and the suppressor won't feel super useful because aggressive stealth isn't really a thing in this game, but at least you'll sometimes avoid like the ire of like a potential like patrol or something like that. I've heard reports that it's not actually working, but that's unconfirmed. It feels okay, but it's more or less just a StA-11 with slightly different stats. It has greater recoil control, which is nice, and for that reason I will favor it over the StA-11, but I'm not gonna give it much more love than probably a C tier. I don't love it that much. Next we have the Halo Shotgun. It is our light pen 605 damage. Love this thing even on the bot front. Similar to the Punisher, but we're getting more upfront damage. Really like it for just like I said with the Devastators on the Punisher, you know, aim towards the eye or go for a leg shot and you will obliterate them. Very fun to use, but I feel as if you want more of the accuracy of the Punisher rather than the damage of the M90A Shotgun. So for that reason, I'm probably going to put it near the bottom of B rather than the top of B for the Punisher. I think the Punisher is the better bot killing weapon if we're looking at this archetype. Okay, and drum roll please for the Coyote. Where do I put the Coyote? Now, if we look at the rest of the weapons in this tier list, where does it belong? I definitely think it's A tier. I think it is easily the best assault rifle in the game at the moment. It is kind of power crept them all due to ammo, gun feel, ergonomics. It has incendiary damage, which I've already explained. Incendiary damage is very good versus Devastators, but it lacks the utility of explosive damage, which does matter because of just sheer killing force and so on and so forth, and just killing certain things like the back of a laser cannon turret and stuff like that faster. And it also can't blow up fabricators. So it's hard for me. Does it deserve to be an S tier? I don't think so. But I'm going to put it at the top of A tier, easily at the top of A tier. I think if it had the ability to destroy like laser cannon turrets or maybe the back of a tank as fast as like a Purifier, or if it had the ability of somehow destroying a fabricator, it would go all the way in S tier. So for the people saying it's the best gun in the game, I don't quite agree. Just from a utilitarian standpoint, the other weapons have more potential. They actually feel like support weapons and they have more mass killing of potential rather than being good against one-on-one enemies. Like, there's no doubt the Death Double AR, the Coyote, feels very good in like a one-on-one situation versus a Devastator. But when there's like 5 Devastators coming out from a dropship, I will gladly take any of the S tier stratagems over it. And you're going to get a lot of Devastator swarms on tier 10 bots that the Coyote just isn't as good at, but you can make it quite proficient by like a couple shots here, lighting them on fire, a couple shots there, lighting them on fire. And with like enough accuracy, you can also like tap them in the eyes and so on and so forth. But that feels like more of an A tier weapon situation rather than a point in their general direction and big boom happens, right? That the S tiers tend to have. Let's quickly look over the tier list to make sure that I have placed everything correctly. I'm probably going to put the variable a little bit lower. I do think it's like kind of hard to use at times. I think I'm pretty happy with where everything landed, honestly. Just kind of going through in my head. I think I was a bit rough on the Scythe. I think it's a little bit higher in B tier. Just, I hope that they fix the sight. Like, imagine this thing with a 4X that actually works properly, like it's actually zoomed in and you're just like laser beaming the eyes of like a bunch of Devastators back to back. I think that would be like A tier personally, but it just doesn't quite have that going for it at the moment, which is why like I don't think it quite deserves to be there. Is there anything else I'd want to move? I'm being a bit kind to the Torture, but I'm gonna keep it there, assuming that you can utilize it quite well, maybe in a city map where the distances aren't as crazy. Pummeler being a bit higher, I think, is somewhat fair because you can just stun enemies, especially when you're using like a ballistic shield and stuff like that. But I think I'm pretty happy with this bot tier list. So let me know, what's your S tier, what's your A tiers? How did I do on this tier list? Do you think I got it pretty spot on? Did I miss something? Did I correct for something? Let me know, because obviously we're all gonna have different opinions on this stuff, so I'm really curious. Feel free to come by the live stream. Obviously I did this live over on Twitch, and we will be live streaming on YouTube once I get the second channel all set up, so keep an eye out for that. Consider dropping by the Discord link down below. Consider liking the video, subbing, and commenting down below. Thanks so much, YouTube. Peace out.